Hey guys, Max here with another list video. Man, after last week's Persona video, I felt like I still haven't talked enough about this game. So, just to get it out of my system, this week's list will be my top 7 Personas from Persona 5. A few rules, because, that's always fun. I'm only listing Personas that the main character can use, so no Personas used by any party member, also no DLC Personas. Now, this list isn't going to be super stat heavy since I'm just going to be talking about the Personas that I had the best time with while playing Persona 5. It was my first Persona game, so I stuck with a few crappy Personas through the late game just because I didn't understand the mechanics. So this is going to be very opinion heavy. Also, spoiler warning, since I'm going to be talking about how these Personas helped me through the game. With the rules, opinion disclaimer, and spoiler warning out of the way, let's begin. Number 7. Dionysus. Starting off with the list is the god of wine and a good time, Dionysus. During the late game, I was reminded that, much like in my life, I had spent a lot of my times with a few friends, most of my time inside playing video games, and the rest of it watching movies with my pet and sleeping. Tons and tons of sleeping. And, much like my real life, I got a rude awakening when I made it to the end dungeon only to realize that I was completely underleveled and out of my league, and I had one day to beat it. Damn you, Persona and your accurate life simulation aspects. After getting my butt handed to me for about 6 hours, I was finally able to negotiate with some shadows, my favorite of which was Dionysus. I really liked him just because he had no weaknesses, was strong against 2 elements, and repelled 1. Also, my team consisted of the boys Ryuji, Yosuke, and Queen because, duh. None of which had any side-based attacks, and neither did any of the Personas I had, so Dionysus filled the gap in my group. Additionally, Thermopylae saved me a few times since my clumsy self got ambushed more times than I care to admit. What the move does is increase all the stats of every party member, which helps even the playing field when ambushed. Dionysus is at the bottom of the list since he got very limited use. I convinced him to join my team at the final dungeon, so I didn't have too much time with him, but he really helped out whenever he was used. Number 6. King Frost. It's a giant Jack Frost. It's so adorable! I was a big fan of Jack Frost when I first saw him, and I was kinda sad when I had to get rid of him simply because he was no longer useful. I had him on the team just because of how adorable he was. So, the first time I encountered this Hulk-like Jack Frost, I just had to have him. He's not the strongest, but he had a pretty dope endurance stat, which was very nice, and, like Dionysus, had no weaknesses, which was a big plus. Alright, look guys, I'm just gonna level with you here. He's on here because I like his stupid big face. Whenever I needed to use any ice move, Yosuke was my go-to. So he was bought out like 3 times during my playthrough. Anyway, moving on. Number 5. Rongda. Now, this crazy looking witch doctor demon thing was a welcomed addition to the party. She did have 2 weaknesses, being electricity and bless, but she made up for it by repelling physical and gun attacks. So she was a huge asset when it came to some of the endgame bosses like Akechi and Shido, both of which have phases during their boss fights when all they do is use physical attacks against the player character. Seriously guys? Ryuji is right there. I love the guy, but I feel like he has more of an ass-kickable face than the main character. Her design was pretty cool too, being based on a queen demon in Balinese mythology. It's one of the Personas that wear their inspirations on their sleeves since it's extremely similar to her real-world inspirations. Here's a couple of examples just to show you exactly how similar her design in Persona 5 is to her real-life counterpart. Number 4. Nekomata. Nekomata is a prime example of a Persona that I kept in my party for way too long. I fused her during Madarama's Palace, and I had her in my party until the beginning of Nijima's Palace. Her level at that point was around 26, meanwhile most shadows in Nijima's Palace were around 40 to 50? I don't really know what I was thinking. There were other stronger Personas that I could have recruited, but since I had fused her using one of the treasure demons at the beginning, which allowed me to give Nekomata my choice of any low level element attacks. I used her all the time just to exploit enemy weaknesses, so she was extremely useful for the first few dungeons where she wasn't too underleveled, but once the shadows got stronger she wasn't much of an asset for me as before. At that point she had saved my butt too many times to simply just fuse her away. I think I spent maybe about 30 minutes trying to decide whether or not I should fuse her away just to make space for stronger Personas. Number 3. Oni. Much like number 6, I loved the design for the shadow, but unlike number 6, he was actually used through my playthrough. The Oni is an icon when it comes to Japanese folklore, and they are said to be large and scary, usually with red skin and large fangs. It's said that they're born from wicked human souls. The Oni was a big pain to deal with at the beginning of the game since he had zero weaknesses and was strong against both physical and gun-based attacks, so when I had to face him as enemies, they would drain my SP. I was pretty impressed when fighting these enemies, so I convinced one to join my party as soon as I could, and he was the head persona through Kanashiro's palace where he can be recruited. I thought it was pretty cool that he was a chivalrous guard before you convince him to join your team. It's kinda like having your own Hell Knight. I mean, once he's on your side. Honestly, if the Persona / Shin Megami Tensei YouTubers had mascots like PokeTubers do, this guy would be mine. Say what you will about his wardrobe choice, this swole ogre had literally no problem beating down my enemies. Number 2. Skathok. Crappy pronunciations aside, this persona was a huge help. I recruited her from Akumura's palace and she stayed in my party until the very end of the game. Skathok comes from Irish mythology where she is a warrior woman and martial arts teacher who trains the legendary hero Cuchulainn. So I found it a little weird that she was depicted as a powerful sorcerer in game. Still, both her magic and strength stats were great, so there's no real reason to complain. She had no weaknesses, she blocked curse and reflected ice. The ability to block curse was a must-have, with some enemies having annoying one-shot moves. She helped a lot in Mementos, where her wind element was great for destroying these Power Ranger knockoffs. I used it to my advantage and farmed these guys to grind for XP. Honestly, she might have been the most powerful persona I had during my playthrough. God, I really sucked at this game. Anyway, the powerful paranormal priestess was a great addition to my team. Also, she's hot. Number 1. Seth. I think I've used this beautiful beast in Shido's palace, and it was probably an accident. I think I used a network fusion to get it done? Man, when I did, we wrecked some shadows. I love the combo of one-shot kill, a gun-based attack that caused severe damage, and cripple, which made gun-based attacks 50% stronger. I used these two in conjunction with Rakunda to decrease an enemy's defense. It was a great mix. Well, for my first playthrough at least. Because honestly, I have no idea how I managed to beat the game with such weak attacks and weak personas. Seth himself isn't all that great. It just looks so cool. It's an awesome black dragon. He helped out a ton through all the final bosses like Shido and even Yaldabaoth, but I really should have known better. I love RPGs and I really should have checked the persona stats, but nah man, it's a motherfucking dragon! Anyway, that's my list. I know these personas really aren't all that great, but they all helped me throughout the game, I mean, except for King Frost. I've learned about fusion, skill cards, and other mechanics during my playthroughs of Persona 4 and 3, so I'm planning on replaying Persona 5 with all my newfound knowledge. What are some of your favorite personas? Let me know down in the comments below. If you liked the video, leave a like and consider subscribing since I'll be making more videos like this in the future. I'll also be revisiting the Persona series since I really can't get enough of these games. Anyway, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next video.